right, make sure YouTube is up. It is. Hey everyone, welcome to the new media show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Todd. Definitely.
Well,
So, staying busy. I'm sure you are too.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm scratching my head here because, I've got this, most of you can't see it. It's just like this space control panel in front of me. And normally when I switch between us, your name tag doesn't come along with it. I invoke that normally. Of course, you can't see it you're just seeing me. But
Right.
I can't figure out how I'll figure it out here in a second. Halfway through the show, I'll probably put a purple haze over you or something, Rob, during the live show because I'll push some button and then I'll be really cussing myself. So maybe I'll just wait to the end. But anyway, hey everyone, welcome. You guys don't care about my technical difficulty. 99.9% of you are listening. But I do want to thank everyone that's on the live stream. If you're on YouTube, make sure you say hello. If you're on Facebook, make sure you check in. Say hello, hello, hello. We want to hear from you. Of course, we're on Twitch, Twitter as well. So,
Todd, I thought you said in the stats that you shared with the listeners that about 20% of our audience is on video.
yeah, they
right?
are. Well, that have subscribed to the podcast video, not that watch us on Facebook.
Oh yeah. As
Yeah,
far as that
yeah.
goes.
Because
Right,
if it was
as far as live, especially.
yeah, because it'd be like 5.
Right. It's not that many people that watch live. Right.
And so anyway, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, just say hello. That's all you have to do.
Right.
But a week out, I was down in Florida. Rob, I have to tell you, it was on my Facebook page, and I triggered a few people.
Yeah.
Florida was open. Bars, restaurants, beaches, hangout areas. In Tampa, they got this like public place where people can bring their dogs, and it's the boardwalk or the riverside walk. It's beautiful. And you go down there and get a beer, sit in a lawn chair on some AstroTurf, and, just watch the world walk by or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Wholly different vibe. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It felt like freedom. It was crazy. And people, I would say mask-wise, I went in a few places around my daughter's place in Tampa where no one was wearing a mask. These are like little mom-pop place dinners, diners, that kind of stuff. But where there was masses of people, I'd say probably 75% were wearing masks.
Right.
And there were no Karens or Kevins that were, you need to wear a mask. So we'll see, but, I wore a mask, though, because around that many people. And my mom was with me, and she half wore a mask. Sometimes it was right here, but she wore a mask.
Well,
but anyway,
I think a lot of people do that. Right.
It was really awesome. And of course, I got to see my new grandson. So, and really made you feel good. We rolled in there. I opened the door. Of course, ding, ding. I just didn't walk into my daughter's house, and daughter opened the door for me. And I walked in, and my almost 2-year-old granddaughter, she sees me. She goes, "Papa, Papa, Papa!" Comes up and jumps up on me and hugs me like I'd been gone forever. So that felt pretty good. So she hadn't forgot.
Right. Yeah, I forgot what you looked like. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had a great time. It was short, but it was fantastic. So, 10 pound. He was 8.8 when he was born, and he's up to 10. A very healthy young boy.
Sounds like it. Wow, 10 pounds already.
And of course, all babies are good looking or cute. So it doesn't matter if they're ugly. They're all cute.
It's in the eyes of the beholder, right?
That's a fact. And no one ever calls a baby ugly. Doesn't matter. Everyone always says in Facebook or in whatever, that's such a cute baby. And they're kind of like thinking internal in their head,
right?
That's an ugly kid,
That never happens, Todd.
No, never. No one's ever done that. But
right. Right.
And so what you been up to? How you been?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Just keep working on various projects that are going on. The Podcast Academy is charging forward too, as you probably saw online that we're trying to wrap up the nominations for the upcoming Ambi Awards. So
Yep.
that was a big thing that's been happening this week. And then the whole flow of commentary and things have started to come out around the end of the year about predictions for 2021 and a little bit of recap of what we just went through in 2020. I think that there's been a lot of people in the industry that have put their keyboards to virtual paper and gotten some stuff written up and submitted over to the newsletters, and they all seem to be starting to run those things. I know I had a post that was in the Podcast Business Journal. I believe it came out on Monday. That was it. It wasn't a complete picture. Actually, I had written a lot more probably 2 or 3 months ago. But I know that we set the expectation that we were going to talk about what we think 2020 represented today on the show, and then also think a little bit about what's next and what's coming up in 2021.
Yeah. So I and I really, to be honest with you, I didn't really get to thinking about it real hard,
Right.
until like this morning. I knew we were going to talk about this, and I had a piece due to Ed anyway for my reflections on 2020 and what I think 2021 is going to look like. So it'll come out tomorrow in that newsletter. So I think though that I really kind of summed it up in some of the stuff that we've talked about a lot this year. But I think we both have our list, and I guess if you look at 2020, while the pandemic's been devastating globally, I know there's people really, really, really hurting globally. You and I have both said that we've been lucky because we've largely been unaffected, and it's not only been business as usual, but we're very, very busy.
Yeah.
So I call 2020 a tremendous growth year with a significant number of independent podcasters starting initial, second, and third shows. So, that's, I guess we need some positive news, considering everything going on. And of course, everybody thinks there's light at the end of the tunnel now with vaccines starting and our healthcare workers getting vaccines and first responders and stuff that have been out there in the front lines, and God bless them for what they're doing. So, but I also, I guess, that was my initial, first bullet. What is your initial first bullet on how 2020's been?
Well, I do think it's been a year of rapid acceleration of the digitization of the economy, right? Just in a general sense, and people's participation in online media and virtual conferencing, virtual business activities, I think has seen just a spike, and I think podcasting was a beneficiary of that spike in growth of whether it be e-commerce, whether it be online video, whether it be all sorts of digital conversion of businesses that were forced to shut down physical locations and start doing things more online. You saw a spike in home delivery services. You saw a spike in Amazon just exploding in what they're doing. And then you see in the same year, Amazon jumps into podcasting in a way that's just beginning. So I think 2020 is really kind of a revolutionary year for the digitization, really is what I like to say, of our real world. So podcasting, in some ways initially it was a little bit of a step back because listenership kind of fell off early to some degree, early in the pandemic, about mid-year. But some platforms didn't. I think it's the composition of the content, what was impacted and what wasn't, and how people were listening to that content. I think had a little bit of fluctuation, but things have come back on that. I do think that the advertising market retracted a little bit, kind of didn't grow as fast a pace as everybody was expecting it to. And that appears to be coming around again too. So, things are looking up. I think that there's a lot of concern and worry about the impacts of IPv6, which a lot of people don't really understand what that means or how that works, or probably actually really care. But I think that is an impact potential that is being realized in 2020 that we will all grapple with as we move into 2021. So, big picture. Oh, and then the globalization of this medium that is right along with the digitization that I was talking about is certainly a phenomenal, and just the rate of growth and the diversity around race and gender and different cultures and languages. And I mean, if you look at just every aspect of this medium, there's just been a lot of innovation, a lot of new things, around transcriptions, monetization, consolidation. You just go through the litany, Todd, of elements of this medium and how it's just exploded in a lot of ways, and I believe in audience too.
I really came from the perspective of the podcaster, the independent podcasters. I looked at that focus. I focus more there, and although I must admit that we've seen an incredibly high number of companies start podcasts. For the first month or two, that's my phone was. I was working 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
It was companies that were trying to get online in a hurry. But what was really kind of amazing about that was they ramped up fast. I mean, they ramped up really fast. And some folks took a 30-minute call. Some folks took a 2-hour call. But they all, bam, they were on it and going. And because they were already using some digital tools like Zoom and stuff like that they just, they added podcasts as part of their arsenal, because all these companies were already doing YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They were doing everything. So they just added one more shell to their arsenal of things to reach customers. But another thing that we saw, and of course it's largely because we launched a new product in May, was the private internal podcasting piece. Company after company after company calling us and wanting to put in and implement a system where they could reach their employees, maintain security of the media, and guarantee utilization, or actually listening of that media or watching of that media. And so we saw this, while companies sometimes dual-headed, they did the public side and they did the private side. And sometimes they did more on the private side than they did on the public side. So that was, interesting dynamic at least for me to watch. And I think what's going to end up happening here, and I want to get too far ahead of myself. I don't want to get into the predictions of 2021, at least for me yet. But I think finally, after 16 years of screaming, I think that podcasters are finally, mostly, largely, what can I say? What more little buzzwords can I use? Are understanding the value of having a website for their show. It's for a while there, a lot of podcasters thought I could do without. And everything I went to, from every training event, every virtual conference, didn't hear anyone. There was not a person that advocated not having a website. And I think that's starting to resonate. Doesn't matter what platform they're on, if they go with Libsyn, Podbean, whoever, having their own website and using your host as your host and your website as your brand, that to me was like a major win. Now, there's still going to be thousands of shows that aren't, but those that have engaged in that methodology, we talked about it here just a couple of weeks ago, talking about Google and the impact Google's having on podcast discovery, and not only podcast show discovery, but podcast episode discovery. I'm actually challenging myself now to write better titles because I'm thinking, okay, how is someone what are you gonna search for in Google that relates to the show? So and so I've actually taken more time in thinking about, how I'm putting stuff together for my shows. But in the end, though, honestly, engaging content coupled with great show notes and search-friendly show titles those shows will continue to see significant growth. So you still have to have engaging content. You can't be boring and talking like this. And, we rounded the corner and saw the tree. That's not going to work.
Right.
No matter if you have a rock star website or not, you still gotta turn and burn. That's why I've got the Red Bull out, and no, Red Bull's not a sponsor here of this show.
Yeah, you gotta bring some level of energy to what you're doing to keep people paying attention. Else they'll treat your podcast as a sleep podcast or something. Right.
Well, and there's some podcasts that actually that's their goal, is to put people to sleep. That's their stated goal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
but
it's the ACMR or the relaxation podcast.
That's right. And we don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, Rob, you and I both ought to have little buttons that are attached to like cattle prods, so that when one of us is starting to doze off, we just give each other a little shot, And you get, ow, okay, I'm here, I'm good, I'm ready.
That's right.
But also we got to look at the other spectrum of, okay, so now people are going to start getting vaccines. Some won't. It's okay. It's your choice. So as podcasters start to go back to I got some teammates at my company, they're itching. They want to go back to the office. Mm-hmm. They're tired of being at home. Yeah. And these are not necessarily employees with kids. These are just, they're looking forward to talking to people, talking to workmates. And so I think what we'll see is, because we've had so many podcasters have one show go to 2 or go to 3, we may see some shows put on pause, because now you're in 2 hours of traffic every day. And that's that you don't have enough time now to do that second show. So, but because so many companies have went remote, some companies are going to go, let's get rid of the lease that we've been paying for, and all this overhead and infrastructure and, all this stuff that goes along with having an office. Mm-hmm. Let's save ourselves $50,000 a year. Let's hire, 10 more employees, and let's stay virtual. So you think about that. Think about how much you're paying for rent, electricity, the insurance on that. And then what does that's for some companies is, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional employees. It could be. For us, it would probably be upwards of 3 employees. If we close our office, we could probably hire 3 more people just like that on the money we save from rent. Right. But again, at what price? So we're not going to close our office. We're going to stay open. We want the team back together. Mm-hmm. But some will stay. Some companies are going to stay virtual. So those folks that are, have that opportunity, they'll offset those people that maybe can't do 2 or 3 shows anymore.
Right. Yeah, it'll be to see how people will react to that choice that they have to make around coming back into the office or not. Do they see enough value in it? I think that there's going to be some comparison that's going to happen, and cost-benefit analysis of paying for an office, right? I mean,
sure.
I'm sure you're going to do the same thing. It's like, well, how did going back into the office improve things? Did we get things done faster? Was the company more successful because we went back in the office? So I think that there's going to be, because now we have a contrast to see which way is the best way to go. Humans like to be together. There's no question about it, and that's a big factor.
The best example I can give is yesterday. Actually, it happened Tuesday. Angelo came to one of our meetings and had an idea, and I'm like, I was kind of irritated. Like, where the hell did that come from? Who have you told anybody about this idea? And I was kind of like, I don't understand. And and he tried to explain it, and he kind of semi-formulated it in his head, and he was talking about it, and even in our board meeting we were talking about it, and finally he kind of connected the dots for me. Now, if we had been in the office together, we'd have probably sat at a table and mapped it out on the wall, and everyone would have been like, ah. Instead, there was friction, because I was like, that's the stupidest thing ever. And it really wasn't. It was actually a really good portions of it was really good ideas, but we just hadn't been able to flush it out. So I think because everyone at this point is so, how should I say it? I'm sick of Zoom. I did 8 hours straight of Zoom meetings on Tuesday, and I crawled out of here. So it just, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is,
what is it about Zoom meetings that makes people fatigued, though? I mean, you
have to sit in your chair for 8 hours. You're sitting in your chair. I got a standing desk, so I get to stand up if I need to, or sit down. But it's just,
that's true. That's true in the real world. I know I spent many years at Microsoft, and that's the reputation at a big company like that, is that you spend all your time going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting all day long, and you're walking all over the campus to do it.
But this was clients, and it was just everything. Right. So I had to be on, because I was gone. I was out Friday, out Monday in the airport. I'm responding to emails. Tuesday morning, I book all day to get caught up, and so I had to be on, because it was customers asking questions. It was podcasters, the whole 9 yards. Right. So there was no time for collab. Right. It's, we get in, we have so many Zoom meetings. There's really no, and maybe what the solution is, maybe we have to have some collaboration meetings where we just kind of have set aside 2 hours, and we're just open floor. We can talk about anything, kids, work, just whatever. And I think that's because, when do you do that normally? We do it we have a little kitchen in our office, and some of the team members brown bag, some don't. Some will go out and get a lunch, or they'll have Uber Eats or something, deliver food. And you sit around, and you may take more than a half an hour to eat lunch. I'm never the one to say, hey, here, use your 30 minutes, get back to work. It's no, because what's happening is this. This idea, that idea, intermixed with personal stuff, laughing, joking, all this stuff that builds a team. So, and we're small enough that everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And we tried, and then what we were doing before is, because we felt the other team members were so excluded, we were having open meetings where we'd run, a Zoom meeting would run in the background, and other people would jump in and be able to be with us that were in remote areas. So we'll see what happens as people go back to work, but I truly believe we'll see some drop off on some shows. Maybe shows they were experimenting with will not continue. So, what does that mean? Well, that means less shows, less revenue, but it is what it is.
Well, I think that's probably happening all the time anyway. It's been going on. It's just to what degree, I think, is really, what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, people pod fade every day, every week. I mean, I think it just depends on what the scale of it is. Yeah. I think the medium grew so fast over the last 4 or 5 months that I think it's natural to expect a fast die off of many shows. What's going to be interesting to see is if there's large numbers of shows that made it further than 5 or 6 or 7 episodes, which is typically what we see in the numbers, right, of shows the pod fade. It's usually after 5 or 6 episodes. Is that number going up to 10 or 12 or what is happening with that? Maybe the shows that are pod fading only made it to 2 or 3. Who knows? So I, that would be great information to know as we look at the data. Daniel and
I'm sure they're going to be watching
Curry and all those folks that are building, and yourself for that matter, to try and figure out what is going on with these new shows.
So I don't want to get into the monetization pieces, but do you have any general other thoughts of, what is new in 2020 besides, you heard about Prince Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
Is she Princess Meghan? I don't know. I assume she is, or whatever her title is.
Yeah, right. It looked like in the reporting that I saw that they were starting their own audio production company. So which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that's just they created a business for their show that they were doing, or if they're going to be creating other shows for other people or something. I don't know.
Sounded to me like they were bringing a show on.
Podcast network of sorts, right?
That could get some serious numbers, because especially if they start telling the dirt. Yeah. Which I doubt he will. He probably wants to keep his allowance.
Well, there is a lot of dirt. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Netflix series called The Crown or not.
Well,
that goes back to the early days of Queen Elizabeth.
In deference to our UK listeners, I will not even attempt to understand, because I am going to piss somebody off by saying something I'm not supposed to. So just call me a general observer, and it's fun to watch from the side of the pond. Or actually, they're on our side of the pond now, but. So it's just like U.S. politics. It's quite entertaining. But I think those types of deals, those exclusive deals, and the guy at iHeart made an inclination to it. He said that there's not going to be very many of those, and that is not the key to success in podcasting. I thought, that's very interesting, because, and if you think of what iHeart has done, matter of fact, my Sirius XM bill just renewed, and wow, I had to call them and cancel, because that first year deal was fantastic. Year two was not. The
little too spendy, Todd. Is that what it was?
It was $232, and it was $132 too much. So
wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. So
Mr. Stern is expensive, right?
Yeah. Well, they got to make their money back somehow. So anyway, so if you think about it, iHeart has not. Any of their exclusive deals are still on all distribution, and they're everywhere. They're not just exclusive to iHeart. So he's kind of figured it out. He understands the value of mass distribution, and that's why Adam Curry said that Joe Rogan will be back on public podcasting within a year. That was his prediction.
Yeah, I saw that article in here that he had talked about that on his No Agenda show, and I think a lot of folks have felt that way too. That
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it'll be longer than a year, if you want my honest opinion. I think he's going to take out his term of his contract, whatever that is.
It depends on how many times he has a certain guest on the show.
Right. Yeah, right.
Would you not love to read it? I don't like reading contracts. I'd send that over to my legal officer, but I would love to read the clauses of what you can and cannot do. If you're going to tell you that would be the story of the year, to see his contract. Take the money out. Just take scribble the money line out, and then just let us see the rest. Let us read that thing.
Yeah. Well, no, I want to read the exit clauses.
Right. That's exactly it.
That's what you want to know.
Yeah, that's what you want. What causes you to get this thing get axed.
Yep.
So
and what are the benchmarks that he has to achieve too? That's the other part.
So I did have and this is just personally based upon what we see at Blueberry, and this is going to piss some people off. I see podcasters. Okay, we have podcasters leave, just like any other company, and we ask them why. And about 9 out of 10 times they'll tell us. And sometimes they're going because there's something offered somewhere else that we don't have. And they've been promised something somewhere.
Right, so, it's a deal I can't pass up.
Right. So in that context, we've seen podcasters that have left. They are gone about 90 days, And that's usually about the time, 90 to 100 days, and they're back. They move back.
Right.
And so we've asked them why they left. And we know that they left because they went to some platform for programmatic advertising. And when they come back, we asked them, why did you come back? And they said it didn't work. They were disenfranchised with the process. And it's not just one platform that they've come back from. And this has happened enough. Mike and I talk about it all the time because Mike says, guess who's back? And I'm like, who? And so, this happens enough on every week or every couple of week discussion point that we've seen podcasters become disenfranchised with programmatic advertising for, number one, low CPMs,
right,
to not getting what they were promised, to advertising that doesn't resonate with their audience or perform well. Primarily those three reasons they come back. And so that tells me, in my personal opinion, that podcast host endorsed advertising, whether injected or built into content, is here to stay.
Right. No, I think it is too. I agree with you.
And I think it's going to grow tremendously in 2021.
And I think a lot of the reason why that's happening with podcasters is that they feel like they can get help on the ad sales side, and it may be worth the trade-off of some lower CPMs to get that whole thing just handled for them, right? That they don't have to do any of the work themselves. And what they realize is that there's so many compromises to that relationship that you have to be willing to accept. That is it really worth putting more ads in your show than what you would normally do to make up for the low CPMs on that?
And not even number of ads, quality of ads, because
quality is a big part of it too, but it's also ad load too, because I know a lot of podcasters can say, well, because I saw it when I was at Spreaker, because Spreaker was using programmatic, was that I can make as much with my podcasts on programmatic as I can with running one host read, because if I run like 6 ads, if you add up that CPMs off of 6 ads, that's equivalent to one host read, right?
Yeah.
So, and I can get that from day one. I don't have to wait till I hit 10,000 downloads to get that one host read. So that's the trade-off that people are looking at. And what they're finding is that they're compromising their relationship with their audience with that strategy.
And not only that, one show that had left that came back, I never looked at their stats. I had no idea what they were doing numbers-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came back, I went back and looked at their numbers. And when they left, they were only doing like 12 or 1,300 downloads per episode. Mm-hmm. And so probably what they thought, I'm going to go over here and get rich, or I'm going to make a car payment. And they find out that they get a check for $20, if they're lucky.
Right.
And
that covered my Starbucks trip last week.
Right. So there's that aspect too, where the show was not very big. And when you're not very big, when you're new, and if you do run a heavy ad load, that is a recipe for absolute disaster. If you haven't, Rob, what's going on with your light behind you? Purple. I saw it turn to purple.
It's a new Wi-Fi light bulb that I have. I can change the color, and I can make it do things. Actually, I can set it to actually change color based on my audio.
So you a festive Christmas spirit here with your light. Okay. Right. Because I'd seen it purple earlier, then I started watching. I was like, what's going on with that light?
I'm communicating with aliens on the show, Todd.
Yeah, so again, going back to that, then if you're new, and you're running 5 or 4 ads, you're running 2 pre-rolls, 2 mid-rolls, then you haven't built a sustainable audience to support the people that get pissed off and leave for the ad load. And your numbers drop to 800, 700, and you're like, where did they all go?
Well, and it's hard to tell sometimes. Is it the content that causes people to leave, or is it the advertising?
If the content's borderline to hold you,
right,
and then you add ad load, some people say, is this worth it?
Right.
So again, going back to engaging content coupled with great show notes, search friendly show titles, and engaging content, and you're going to do well.
I mean, Todd, it is increasingly a difficult conversation to have with podcasters
Yeah.
about monetization.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell them that they need to start off first building a trust relationship with a significant number of listeners first before they really charge down that path of monetization. So I mean, a lot of people want to augment their income, or they've
don't
cut
blame
back
them.
on their work or something like that. Right.
You know, I had a client that switched to one of our higher level hosting plans so he could get ad insertion. And I talked to him. I said, how many, I haven't looked at your stats. I could look at it, but tell me how many downloads you get per episode. We get about 12,000 downloads an episode. And I said, good, that's great. That's probably, that could be anywhere between $200 and $350 an episode, depending on the type of ad deal you get. And I said, we talked about his content. We talked about doing flat rate and, all the options he was out to him. And he's getting ready to have a second show. And I'm like, are you going to, I said, these shows going to be so much different that you're not going to have, people crossing over and going one to the other. And he said, no, we're not going to we want people to listen, but they're not going to stop listening to this show because we start this other show. But I'm also afraid when someone finds a little bit of success there, for me, that's where you like, all right, afterburner. That's where you hammer. If you've hit 12,000 downloads per episode, that's the time to like crank it up, because you're getting economy of scale. Getting from 1 to 12 is much harder from getting 12 to 25.
Right. Yeah.
Getting from to 1,000 is really hard. And then we get to 1,000 to whatever that next 10,000. But it's just like YouTube. YouTube, you see these folks that all of a sudden they got 150,000 subs. Next week they got 175, 250. And it's just because they kind of gain critical mass. And it's the same way in podcasting, because it's, hey, did you hear about this show? What everyone I've been talking to lately, what are you listening to? True crime, listening to a variety of different things. And they ask me, what shows do you listen to? And I tell them 2 or 3 that I listen to. So, and then they say why they listen to that show. And I'm like, maybe I should go listen to that. So the recommendation engine from individuals is still super, super strong. So anyway, it's going back to our discussion, so what's going to happen with this guy? He's going to have 2 shows, maybe 3. And then other people are opening up studios. I talked to a guy down in Florida that's doing something really, really cool in a town down there that doesn't have a podcast studio yet. And just, there's all kinds of things happening. So another thing we don't see is I'm not seeing too many. We're in a down. We're going to screw myself and you, Rob. We're at the bottom of the U on consultants giving bad advice. We have it goes in a cycle.
Yeah.
You get to the low and you're like, oh, thank God all those idiots are gone.
Right. They're back and forth. Todd.
And then all of a sudden, because guess what? We're at a lull. All the people that thought they were going to make big money have quit. And there's kind of a dearth in the space, and is that a word? Dearth in the space of consultants. And so, there's room for consulting. I can be a podcast consultant. I failed with my show. So, and then you see it tick, 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 tick back up.
Yeah. It's, when people sense that there's big money being made, a lot of these big deals, the consolidation deals that are happening with the big media companies has kind of fueled people's energy around, maybe I can build a career around this. I think we've said this on the show before, but I've never seen so many people on LinkedIn putting podcasts in their titles to what they do. It's phenomenal.
I've never seen so many new podcasting production groups getting 3 million, 4 million, 3.2, 2.6. So on investment dollars. The investment dollars are coming in, and it's all on people that are building networks, and I'm thinking to myself, that stopwatch, the 60-minute stopwatch. So think about a 60-minute. Those of you that seen 60 Minutes and the iconic 60-minute stopwatch, just imagine that's 36 months.
Right.
That's ticking. They're on the clock. 36 months to make it work, because at 36 months the chickens come home to roost and the money runs out.
Right. That's true.
So they have to make it happen. Thank God I am not underneath that kind of pressure to have to, make the investors happy and keep them, because you have to produce some hits, not hits.
Oh yeah, you do. There's a lot of variables, as you know, Todd, to making this stuff work. I mean, it's hard to make a formula out of it that works every time.
Yeah. Patrick, thanks you for saying Rob sounds so big and clear. We appreciate it. I guess.
Yeah, it's nice to have that big, strong sound.
Did I tell you what was going on with my headphone, Rob? It wasn't the headphone. It was a pot that was sticky that was actually crickling.
Oh.
I'm tapping, I'm beating on this $400, earbud, and it's nothing's wrong with it,
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, Todd, I think one of the biggest stories, though, as you look over 2020, and I think I alluded to it a little bit, is really the global growth and expansion of podcasting. I mean, just the distribution platforms that are embracing it now, and all of the big media companies outside of the U.S. just jumping in, even production companies around the world that have converted from radio to podcasting more and more. It's just, it's really remarkable to see what's happening there. I think 2021 is going to be all about the global expansion of podcasting. I think that's going to be the big story.
We launched GeoSavin last week, Ghana today. We actually even added Podchaser as a destination. Their integration was really simple. And then I've got 3, one big one, really big one, and 2 others, Middle Eastern companies,
right,
that are looking to add podcasting. So, if we think about it, on non-English speaking, there's a heck of a lot of non-English speaking countries. And we look at India, we just did 2 big. You guys did it. We did it. I think everyone else has 2 big distribution points into India, but that's just India. What happens when there's distribution into other large of course, India's a pretty big population, but we could end up in a lot more countries on other platforms that specifically cater to French or Portuguese or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. Like we've talked about on the show, that I think some of these platforms represent the shift that I was talking about, I think, a couple of weeks ago, towards kind of niche development of podcasting on the distribution side. Is that we're going to see more and more kind of not directories that have everything, but directories that have a specific subset of the podcasting market that are catering to a particular listening market. I think we're going to see an expansion of sports. I think there's going to be a growth of other alternatives to listening to sports in a consolidated kind of listening experience, or politics, and we're starting to see that happen a little bit on the politics side too. With some of the migrations that are happening to different parts of the political spectrum to certain apps, because they feel like it's more open, or freedom of speech and those kind of issues is going to pull content into these platforms more and more. And so it's the nichification of the distribution of podcasting, I think, is the next big thing as you look over the next 5 years.
Well, and there's a platform for every type of content there is. And here's the challenge with us as companies, I have interns do my integration work for like GeoSavin and those types of companies. My main devs don't do that integration. And why? Why is it? Because it takes work to do that API integration and X number of hours, and then so as a smaller player comes on the scene, someone that's maybe, let's say it's going to be a tech app and they just want tech shows. I may not be inclined to do distribution API integration just to send tech podcasts over to this app. It's because I think that's coming. So we may get to a point where we say, okay, we'd love to integrate with you, but you're going to have to pay for the dev time for the integration. We're not just going to, we're just not going to do it for free, because there has to be big enough bang for the buck as a podcast host. So, here's my piece of advice to anyone that's listening right now. And if you're consulting at all with any company or any group that is wanting to have, needing distribution to get shows into their platforms, please email me. I have a white paper, about a 5-page white paper that lists, and again, I'm going to vet you before I send this to you and who we're going to send it to, but it's a 5-page white label. It just basically explains best practices in working with companies like us, Libsyn, Podbean, and others to get distribution, and how you can make it easier, how you can make it very difficult for us to work with you. And Angelo wrote this thing up. It's really amazing. And we give it to every one of our potential distribution partners and say, we'd love for you to do option 1. We can do option 2, and option 3 sucks, so.
Yeah, I mean,
and I can tell you, when in the beginning, option 3 was Spotify. The way we had to integrate with them.
God, yeah, I don't even like thinking about it too much, because it was a painful process to go through.
If we knew what they were going to do, I'd have said forget it.
Right.
Because I have to convert M4As and MP3s. We had to write code to convert people's audio, because they don't take MP3s. I mean, they don't take M4As. They're MP3 only.
Right.
They did their tech support, all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
And they went with the hardest route. And then ultimately, guess what they did? Option 1, which was they had their own portal.
Right.
They went back to option 1 a year and a half after we told them option 1's the way to go.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a common behavior. Though I have to say that some of the newer platforms that have come into podcasting have, a lot of them have actually listened to the advice. Some to greater or less degree, but it's been better than in the past.
I can think of one that's we're trying to guide.
Right. Well, there's more than one of those, but yeah.
One big one we're trying to guide right now. We're like, really?
Even they were kind of wavering in the beginning too, and eventually they came around, right?
We're talking all around things here, but
right. So, to larger companies, things don't look the same to them from their perspective. I mean, it's the same thing I saw when I was at Microsoft. I mean, the market looks different to a big player than it does to smaller players. Yeah. So, Todd, on a slightly different topic here, did you see Dave Weiner chimed in? For those that don't know who Dave Weiner is, he's the one that invented RSS 2.0, or was one of the leaders in the development of that standard that podcasting is really kind of built on. But he and Adam Curry were celebrating the 20th birthday of podcasting.
Wow. Because that's when they talked about it in a hotel or something, right?
Yeah. Is that really the birthday of something when people talk about something?
That's where the idea was formulated. They didn't actually...
Nothing was actually
done.
Birthed from that.
No. Right. Because I think at the time, the RSS 2.0 spec was not out yet.
Right. So enclosures was not. I mean, it was an idea.
As an idea, yeah.
And that's pretty much all. I don't know that it was the birth of podcasting.
And I'd have to go back and look at when RSS 2.0 was actually made a spec, and the enclosure. Again, for those of you that are not techies, the enclosure tag is exactly what makes podcasting
work. work.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you ever look at your code, look at your RSS feed. If you know where it's at, some of you don't know what your RSS feed is, and that's, to me, is insane. But do a right-click view source, and then just do a, Control F or Apple F to find and write the word enclosure in.
Right.
And you'll find what we're talking about. But so
Yeah, because what
did he have to say? I didn't listen to it.
I've been involved in distributing like an MP3 of my show since 1999, which is 2000 in that time frame, which is when they're talking about here. If they're thinking about 20-year anniversary, that would be at the turn of the century, right? The 2000 time frame is when they first started talking about podcasting. The concept of podcasting was kind of all that. It was kind of already around back then. So in some ways, it was more of a technology implementation. Because I was working with other platforms and distributing MP3 files online myself for my own show.
But Rob, let's be clear. It was a closed ecosystem, completely controlled. You had to know somebody and write a contract and kiss somebody's butt and take someone out to dinner 5 times to get on those platforms like Microsoft.
Right, exactly. That's true. That's true, but that's what the world looked like back then.
Right.
A lot of those platforms were dominated by technology companies that were trying to play in audio, and they were typically playing with the big media companies back then. So, so those platforms were starting to open up, and then there were some startups that started to come out with things too. And some of those startups, one of them was Personal Audio, which was the one that originally tried to get a patent on podcasting. So
good riddance.
Yeah, so you can kind of see in the early days, like 99 or something like that, was kind of when the idea for this was kind of formulated, and it manifested itself into some proprietary platforms to get started with, and then it wound up going open, with RSS. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll call it. Let's see here. You got. What do they call it? After Christ, before Christ. So we've got before podcasting and after podcasting. So before podcasting, it was fully
all proprietary, right?
And a big keyword here: gatekeepers, fully gatekeepers
and proprietary,
right?
And if you think about it, Adam Curry getting back into podcasting, Dave starting to take interest again is you have to wonder if there's some correlation between what they were trying to do back then and what they see happening in the market today, and their concern and why they're chiming up again. So in the scheme of things, I'll never forget being at an over-the-top conference, OTP, over-the-top, OTP player, like a Roku or one of those devices. I remember, and there was a bunch of executives sitting up on the top. There was a guy from, I think, whatever the major cable companies were at the time. Right.
And this guy probably was a Time Warner, Roadrunner, whatever they were. And I said to him, what does it take to get an audio only channel? Like you guys have these 800 audio channels.
Right.
On your guys' cable system. Because I'm thinking 24/7 podcasts, right, baby? Channel 1082. That's what I'm thinking, right? He looks down at me, and I think I'm 42, 43 at the time. Young man. Called me a young man. 10 years and $10 million is what it's going to cost for you to get on my cable box. And I thought, I had an epiphany at that moment.
Right. I'm going to show this guy.
No. I was still in the Navy at that time.
Right.
And I was really in the evolution of podcasting. And I said, under my breath, I said, F you.
Right.
And I'm just walking away. I'm like, I don't need this dude. I don't need him. We don't need him. We have something here already. We don't need these gatekeepers. So
no.
that was that attitude, and it still grinds on me today because you need to look down at me, you little insignificant turd. That's how it came across.
Wow. I'm going to squash you like a bug.
Squash me like a bug. So,
right.
But it made me resolve to understand what we have is. I keep saying it's pretty special, and I don't want podcasters to forget that. So going back to what you're saying here, Rob, another thing about 2020 is definitely the podcast index.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the top story of the year. That is it's not really a story, but if you're not following what's going on at podcastindex.social, if you're not on that platform and watching and participating in the discussions about the expansion of RSS 2.0 and the now 9 podcasting companies that are participating in that effort, then the work, some people think, this is just going to go away. What Adam Curry's doing is just going to go away. He's not any, this is the mindset of some of these.
It's going to go away.
Big companies that are out there.
Right.
He'll go away. This is just an annoyance. He'll go away. No, he's not.
Well, there has been a lot of examples of that, Todd, that have happened over the years. These initiatives start up and they kind of fizzle out.
Well, right? I don't think
I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here.
I don't think so.
Because if you think about who's behind it, I think that's what you have to keep in mind.
And it's got some groundswell,
right?
And it's building. So,
right.
If you're not participating, get left behind, and prepare to play catch up. So it's an interesting move. In that, again, an indie podcaster hat coming on here. And again, there's no risk of podcasting becoming closed, but this is an expansion and assurance and an insurance policy that it won't.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the tools they're working on are not for Spotify or Pandora or iHeart or any of those other folks. It's for you. It's for you, the individual podcaster, to do some really cool stuff. You just got to bring pressure upon whoever your hosting provider is to say, how come you're not doing this? How come I can't do this? How come you're not supporting this, this, and this? And here's why. You have to make your case on why you want implementation of some stuff, but you got to be involved to understand what's going on to do that.
Right.
So at least for me, I think 2021 that's going to be a big part of 2021 is what the podcast index is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's going to happen, Rob. Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. Well, that's always what's driven this industry, right? People seeing what other people are doing and copying it.
Oh, my God. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Someone made an announcement the other day, and I was like, I cussed because I'm just about ready to make the same announcement.
Somebody beat you to it.
Someone beat me by a few days, and I'm like,
right.
And then they're going to get say, so then someone's going to say, oh, you're copying me. I'm like, no, I was working on it at the same time. We're just a little slower.
Right. So I saw, Todd, an Australian podcast ranker is saying that Thursdays are the biggest day of the week for podcast downloads for them.
I think in the United States,
I think that's too late in the week.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think we've seen.
I always thought it was
Tuesday, Thursday, I think, has always been our. And it varies month to month if Tuesday or Thursday.
I think some people put out episodes on Tuesday and some put them out on Thursday if they are doing 2 episodes a week. And I think, I do tend to think that Tuesdays and Thursdays are probably very popular publishing days, just generally.
Yeah.
But as far as downloads go, I'm a little surprised at Thursdays. is that an accumulation?
Shouldn't it's
over the week, or is that a just for that day? I guess it is just that day.
Well, if you have more shows being more episodes being released on a Thursday than a Tuesday or a Monday,
Right.
guess what? You're going to have more
Cause the
downloads.
numbers to go up.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all, if everyone shifts to a Monday publishing schedule, then Tuesday is going to be the biggest consumption day. I think that those types of stats are kind of like, all right, that's cool. Next.
Well, I was looking at their actual chart that they have that's tracking. Well, it says it says percent of downloads by day of the week. And if you look at the actual chart from the ranker, it shows Tuesday is 16.2%. Wednesday is 16.1%.
Ooh, big difference. Margin of error.
Yeah, right. And then Thursday is 17%. So really, if you look at Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, those are the peak days. So, which makes sense. I mean, a lot of people will push an episode out on some have said to push it out on Monday, but maybe Monday tends to be a day that people kind of are trying to get situated back into the week again, and Tuesday is when people settle into their routines again.
Now, I'm not always proficient in getting this show out the same day that we record it.
Right.
I can be a day, sometimes a day and a half late, or maybe two. Sorry.
Right.
But this show, I think people just listen when they listen. Yeah, I think I don't know if we're a Phil show or if we are a, gotta listen show.
Yeah, And then their number one genre, Todd, in Australia, guess what it is?
True crime.
It's number 2. Number 1 for them is radio shows.
Okay. Well,
you can kind of see where Australia is in their.
Who's runs the awards and who, it's all that. What is it, ABC or whatever they have down there? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you think about those, and Canada's a lot like this too. There isn't a strong independent podcast creation kind of ecosystem in these countries. It's very skewed towards
radio,
the public radio pathways, and that's why you're seeing repurposed radio shows being so popular down there. That's the phase. The U.S. kind of went through that phase for a while too, early in the podcasting space, but
they never.
I don't think you see many radio shows
on
the top 200 list anymore.
But here's the thing, though. Independents have always dominated, overall. Certain categories are certain, there's 3, 4, 5, 10. But below that, there is, it's all indies.
Right.
But
it does speak to the difference in the media markets.
True.
Outside of the U.S. and how they skew differently. I mean, here in the U.S., public radio is huge. It's a huge part of podcasting. Don't get the wrong impression that public radio doesn't have a big influence on podcasting here. It does, but it's just disproportionate there. And the independent production side of podcasting outside of the U.S. has been lagging for various cultural and economic reasons, I believe. But I think it's catching up. If you look at the next one on the list, the ranker is true crime, and it's getting close to 70 million downloads versus 101 million for radio shows.
That means in
comedy and
70 million what?
True crime
downloads, or what? How they rank it?
Yeah. It actually doesn't say. No, it is downloads. Right.
So that's
in Australia.
So that means that the women listening to podcasts is super strong in Australia. Being true crime is absolutely unequivocally dominated by women listeners.
Female listeners, right?
I was just talking with someone the other day. Said, "Oh, true crime. True crime is my favorite genre. Do you listen to true crime?" And I'm like, "No, I don't listen to true crime."
Right.
And
I don't either.
And right in that that sweet demographic for true crime. So,
and comedy is number 3, news is number 4, and lifestyle and health is number 5. So those tend to follow fairly closely to the U.S. as far as those are probably independent programs, but news you would think would be coming out of the radio networks. So, yeah,
it's
but anyway, that's what's going on with that.
There was a couple of things. I see you're digging for news now. Are we done with predictions?
No, I think we can talk about I think a big burning question that a lot of independent podcasters have is, can they be successful in this market? And is it too late? I know a lot of people will ask that question. Is it too late for independents to get in because there's just so many shows now, right, Todd?
Yeah, whatever. So I'm doing my Google search here for here's the example. Now, okay, Rob.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, according to the master red book, all-knowing Google,
yes,
in 2020, over 455 million websites use WordPress.com. That means that WordPress market share is 35% of all websites in the world. So, okay, so 455. Let's just round it up to a cool billion websites. Billion or more with a B. How many active podcasts were there, Rob?
I believe it's around probably 1 million now, probably.
Well, active. No. Active shows.
No,
like,
I thought.
Well, it's like 400,000.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, where we have 1.8 million shows in the catalog.
Yeah, but
how many of those are active?
In the last 90 days, about 400,000.
400,000 out of 1.8?
Yeah.
1.7?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's dropped a lot.
All right. So let's think of, what's Daniel's site again? Let me go look. We'll get the actual number.
Right.
It's podcast reviews, right?
Yep.
Oh, I did it wrong. We've done this. I should have this on like a hot...
a hot shortcut link, right?
Yeah. Okay, let me look here. My podcast reviews. Duh.
Yeah.
And let's see here. So as of today, there are... Oh, here I got to go to stats. Industry stats. There are... Oh. Okay, total podcast 1.715 million. And let me go down here. I got to find the list.
Okay, active versus inactive.
Yeah, 40% active. Right. So maybe your numbers,
Well, he's saying 60% are active.
No, 59.07 are inactive. 40.093 are active.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And 40% are active.
So do that high school math, Rob. 1.715.
Okay. So 1.7 divided by 4?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or divided by 1.7.
I'm just going to rough it. It's
I didn't get the
take 700. Let's say it's 700,000. Okay.
Well, that would be it would be about 700,000.
Okay,
right.
So
right.
How many people in the world speak English? Out of the world's approximately 7.5 billion inhabitants, 1.5 billion speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's consider half of those are probably in the age range. They're probably wanting to listen to podcasts, 18 plus. So that means 0.75 billion or 750 million people speak English and can listen to a podcast. And if there's 700,000 shows, there's plenty of audience growth available. You don't have to worry. There's somebody that's going to want to listen to your show, but you've got 0.75 billion people that could potentially listen to your show. And
yeah, I mean, that's where the international expansion of the distribution of podcasts is so important.
In
that growing number.
67 nations have English as the primary language.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those speak a second and third, too. Except if you live here in the United States, you might be lucky if you English primary and maybe a little Spanish or, whatever you've studied French in high school. Why anybody would study French in high school anymore, I don't know. But so if you take that number, there's plenty of growth compared to how many blogs did I say there were? About a billion?
Yeah, huge amount. I'm not even sure how many.
So that, if there's a billion websites, that means that you've got 1 point something persons per blog. So your chances are much, much greater of growing. So it's a great time to start a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
And based on Daniel's stats here, we're growing about 3,500 new podcast shows every day.
Every day?
Every day.
I'm not getting all that business, that's for sure.
I mean, the last 30 days, we grew 98,000 shows.
That's a pretty incredible number.
Yeah.
So
we're going to hit 2 million here.
Yeah.
Probably in the first quarter of next year. Yeah.
So I think what it really boils down to is, but again, 50% of those will fail by episode 7. An additional 50% of those will fail before they get to episode 25. And then the 50% remaining from that list will make it to 2 years. So you just got to hang out for 2 years.
Right.
You just got to do your show for 2 years.
That's right.
And you will have even a higher advantage of being able to grow.
Right.
And that's why I keep telling people, you got to do 2 years. Hard work. You got to grind.
It's the longevity that wins.
Yeah. Because all the other shows that people have been listening to that you're competing with, they've quit.
Right.
But you have to be in the place for them to find you when they quit. Because if you have good search terms, if you have good show titles, they will find you. See how this works?
Yeah. No, it's magical, Todd.
It's no magic.
Hey, Todd, I've got a new question for you. That'll kind of get your head spinning a little bit too. So, have we solved the measurement issue in podcasting, Todd?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the safe comment on that, or is it really entirely true?
Without divulging too much, we are at an impasse.
Yep.
It's not our fault going forward at this point.
No.
I am collecting what I can collect.
Right.
I'm actually introducing something within probably around Christmas that's going to give you everything that I possibly can give you in just raw data. But what we've done. Now we can mix it up and make it look pretty and give you different tracking charts, and you're just taking the same data and manipulating it.
Right.
But until Apple, Google, all these companies start giving us client-side data, that's it. Now, Apple, never going to do it. Matter of fact, I'd almost bet something big that they would not. And then, of course, next week they'd announce that they did just to spite me. But,
they'll figure out some way to
make me
wrong,
lose the bet, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that I got I'm going to give Ryan some feedback here in a minute, because Ryan left something in chat that I'm going I have to get on my soapbox on. We have to get the app developers and you as a podcaster. Todd can't solve this because Todd's going to go to Pocket Cast, all these apps and say, please, 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 please start working with us to give us client-side data. And they're just going to take both of their middle fingers and they're going to flip me off.
Right.
How much do you want to pay for that? They're going to say. So you, as a podcaster, are going to have to start advocating for client-side data. Now, there's going to be some initiatives to try to get some app developers to play ball. And I think what Adam Curry's doing in incentivizing app developers is part of that. Okay, so let's put this scenario on the table. Who needs client-side data, Rob?
Oh, the advertisers, the advertising industry.
Okay, hold on.
Right.
Okay, said it right there. The advertisers need it.
Right.
So what if we incentivized the app folks to provide client-side data by saying, for every podcast in your platform that runs advertising, we're going to give you a little bit of money for every download. We're going to give you some points.
Right.
And you're going to get that every month in a check from Libsyn, Blueberry, Megaphone. Everyone's going to write you a check every month for your percentage of downloads from client-side track data. Do you think they would do it? Let's say we gave them a percent. 1% of $1 billion. 1% of $1 billion, or 0.5% of $1 billion in podcast advertising revenue will motivate every single non-corporate podcast app to provide client-side data only for, everyone's going to get it, for the shows that need the client-side data. If you incentivize them, because guess what? You pay $3.99 for the app and you're done.
Right.
Or you're paying $2.99 a quarter. They have no financial incentive to do client-side data. So
Apple's not going to go for that, are they?
Nope. Apple's not going to do it. They don't need it. They make more money by the time I just blink my eyes. I blink my eyes. They made more money in the blink of my eye than I make in probably 10 years.
Right.
I just, every time I blink, think about, I just blinked $1 million. Just think about that, right? So they don't need that point, and they aren't going to do it. But if we can get every other app to do it, guess what all of a sudden people are going to say? You need to use Pocket Cast to listen to this show.
Well, Todd, in some ways, isn't Apple kind of on the verge of giving access to some view of that data in their Podcast Connect platform? I mean,
when I was growing up, when I had
they might disclose a little bit more detail there.
When I was growing up, my dad had a saying: "Wish in one hand, and you know what in the other, and see what comes first." So,
well, Todd, let's talk about what sharing that data from Apple to the podcasting industry, what we would like it to look like versus what we think Apple would actually potentially do at some point in the future.
Well, what we would like is start, stop, scrub, completion.
Right.
Start. Yes, you started and you listened to 10% and you stopped and you bounced out and you never come back. Or you listen.
See, what Apple doesn't want to do is to share that data directly externally, right?
Yeah.
Because it could be mapped to personally identifiable information.
No, not if you just give me start, stop.
Well, it could be. I'm just saying
if they
did it,
if they anonymized it.
Right. Could they do that in their Podcast Connect area?
Yeah.
To help podcasters understand what's going on with their shows without having to report it outside of their platform?
They could.
That's a question.
They could. So if we got start, stop, scrub, complete.
Right.
And I'm talking about a signal that says, okay, they stopped or they scrubbed.
Right. And that could only be obtained by a podcaster going into their Apple ID account.
That'd be huge.
And maybe doing a query, right?
That'd be huge.
Right. And they could potentially export, let's say, a PDF or a Excel spreadsheet that would have those breakdowns by whatever increment of time.
Yeah, of time.
The podcaster needed for their own use, right?
Yep.
It's not being put out in a API, or it's not being
in a perfect world.
Risk.
In a perfect world, you go to Libsyn or you go to Blueberry and you authenticate for us to get that information in a perfect world, and we pull it for you, and then have it in your system that can be overall reporting. So this is the only. Apple's going to do what Apple's going to do. We're completely speculating here, but Marco Ament's never going to give client-side data. But if there was $10 million on the table every year, Marco might go, Well, he might not,
Right.
But
I mean, is it because Marco is sensitive to the privacy concerns?
Yeah, we don't need.
Or is it more that he doesn't want to devote the dev time to building an interface?
If Marco got incentivized to get $10 million a year from client side tracking on advertising, where he was written a check by everybody.
He might be more willing to do it. Is that your point?
He might. He may just flip us all the bird. But there's going to be enough apps that are poor, and they're doing this because they love podcasting, and they're hardly making any money with in-spot advertising.
Right.
That
especially
might
programmatic.
So if you got a show that's got 1% of if you got a podcast app that's got 1% market share, and they're going to get 1% of the revenue of ads that run on. Now, that doesn't come out of the podcaster's pocket. That's taken out of hide from me, you, the agencies. Mm-hmm. Podcaster's not going to lose a dime. Then if you incentivize that, but you know what? Here's where I'm going to say it's not going to work. Those companies are not going to write checks to Marco and all these other app developers. They're not going to give them a cut for that client-side data. And guess what? They're not going to get it. I'm just being brutally truth.
I don't think they are either.
That's what it's going to take. There are people right now listening to the show that are saying, be quiet. Be quiet. Or there might be some people that are saying, yeah, let's do that. And it doesn't have to be a percent, but you're already giving up. If you're an agency, you're already making 15% on that money straight up.
Right.
And then if you're a Blueberry and I have to go to an agency, I give up 15% to them. Mm-hmm. So, on a 30% ad revenue split, or 70-30, I only keep 15 because I give the other 15 to the agency.
Right.
So if we give them a 0.5%, and let's say we split it between the agency and the podcast host or whoever's running the deal, Megaphone, whoever, Captivate, all the different sites. Here's my philosophy. If I'm making money and I'm helping the podcast space expand and the ad sales are going to go through the roof because we've got client-side data, this is a rounding error.
Right.
You're if we're going to get to 2 billion or 3 or 4 or 5, we're all worried about attribution. Attribution goes away when you have client-side data. You don't need attribution no more. Well, maybe.
Right.
But
you probably do.
All right. So did I answer your question, Rob?
Yeah, I think so.
So Go ahead.
I was going to say, and has the discovery issue, which never really existed, has it finally been solved?
Oh, there's always discovery issues.
My podcast is not getting enough listeners.
So
it has a discovery.
So Ryan, you've hung out. I have to. So Ryan says, and this goes back. Let me start off by podcasting is the last bastion of free speech, whether you like it or not. Ryan says, and listeners are beginning to realize that podcasts are going to be the last place to get controversial discussion and news. It doesn't even have to be controversial because people are being ghosted for what someone else considers controversial.
Right.
So my statement stands. Podcasting is the last bastion of free speech.
That doesn't mean it will remain a bastion of free speech.
Over my dead body.
That came out in the Guardian talking about that. Our podcasting become the new medium for misinformation.
Okay, your misinformation
out too.
Your misinformation is someone else's fact. So
right.
I'm an adult. You're an adult.
Right.
I have logic and reasoning. When I hear something that is total bullshit, I know it's BS. I might be entertained by it.
Right.
But I'm an adult and I can make those decisions. What has been in? Okay, here's the thing. Oh my God, it's controversial.
Where's the line?
No, listen. It's controversial. It's controversial content. Did anyone ever in their lifetime? No. You guys do a Google search for Art Bell. Go and listen to his archive. Radio programming. Go listen to, please, I beg of you, any of you that thinks, oh, podcasting's in trouble because of controversial content, go listen to 10 hours of Art Bell.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say.
Where's that line? Hey, let me set the table so people totally understand what we're talking about here. Where's the line between misinformation and entertainment?
If you're not threatening to kill somebody, if you're not being a racist,
right.
If you're not doing hate speech,
right.
Fire away. Do what you want to do.
Right.
Call it comedy. Hey, you can have a controversial show and just call it fake news. Call it fake news and knock yourself out.
Right. And people are.
Right. Good.
Right.
Good.
So is there a difference, Todd, between misinformation
No.
and entertainment?
I'm not one to judge.
/manipulation /
I'm not one to judge. How am I to judge?
Right. Well,
because if I judge and I think this content is controversial, guess what I've just violated? Everything that Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms are now in trouble of is editorializing. I am not going to editorialize any of my content.
Yeah.
Now, if you say you're going to kill somebody, if you talk about racial things or you talk about hate speech, you're gone.
Yeah.
But other than that.
That's the dilemma that Joe Rogan is facing, right?
And he got $100 million deal from Spotify.
Right. Got to be careful what the deal that you do is if you want to.
YouTube
speech, right?
Gone. Socials gone. Patreon is even willing to kick stuff off. You're right. Podcasting is the last bastion of free speech.
But will it remain so is the question.
Over my dead body.
Well, it's the listening platforms are just like what happened in the other medias. It's the distribution platforms
right.
are the ones that have that control.
I am a service provider. I am not...
Or the listening platforms, not the distribution.
I am a service provider. Right. I am not an editorial vehicle.
Right. We do have our terms of service, just like what you said.
That's right.
If there are certain forms of content that violate those fairly narrow areas of content, then, yeah, we have no place to to have a role in a decision around whether a piece of content is deemed okay for people to listen to.
There will be a social justice campaign run against one of us at some point here in the near future. And there'll be heavy pressure for us to take action on content.
Well, Todd, I've already had it happen to me years ago. So there's nothing new on that.
But did you take it down? Now, if it was...
Only if it violated the terms of service.
There you go.
Right.
So someone comes to you and says, oh, they're talking about QAnon on this podcast. You have to take it down. Nope. So,
I think what you're talking about is probably a more advanced issue around social justice. And it gets back to lots of issues that we don't need to go into on this show, but that are could make things rather uncomfortable.
Yeah. With that, Rob.
Yes.
We have knocked this thing out of the ballpark.
We did. Killed it.
If you love the show today, tell all your friends.
Right.
Tell everyone how Todd said over his dead body. That'll get them to listen.
Right.
I should make that the title of the show.
Yep.
But podcast predictions and the last bastion of free speech. And guess what? We're a bastion of free speech for countries that have censorship. If you use a platform to be able to bypass countries' censors.
Well, we are facing some pressure from external listening platforms that have censorship agendas.
We're not.
There's ones out there that we have to decide if we're going to participate in.
Yeah.
From a distribution standpoint, right, for podcasting that do have restrictions on topics and types of content. So I think that is a challenge that's coming to all of the hosting platforms is, we're going to have to decide, do we want to be, a distribution platform, for example, China, right? That's a really good example. You
mean for China state-run propaganda?
Well, just, being a platform that publishes into consumption platforms in, let's say, China. China's going to require us to filter certain types of content out.
I'm not going to play that game.
And I believe it's happening in Iran. It's happening in other places around the world, too, that are looking to limit access to certain types of topics.
They're going to get everything, and they decide on their side what they want. That's not my choice.
Right. No, but do we want to embrace those platforms?
No.
That are doing wholesale censorship.
And we should be making we make it very easy for people to come into blueberry.com and listen to. Matter of fact, we are in China's Great Firewall. You have to use what do you call it? Some sort of bypassing mechanism to come into blueberry.com's directory. You can't get to it from China.
Probably a VPN of some sort.
VPN. Of course, VPNs are illegal in China. So, okay.
Are illegal?
Yeah.
Illegal?
You have to be in order to use a VPN in China, you either have to be a foreigner, number one, or two, you have to have a registered VPN that the government can track what you're using that VPN for. And you still are subject to being picked up on the street and sent to a rehabilitation farm for 10 years where you pound rocks.
Right.
And fed gruel. I will never go into China. I will never go through Hong Kong. I'll never go to China. They will pick me up and lock me up the second I get in the country, as much smack as I talk about them on my tech show.
Wow. Okay. No,
love the Chinese people.
Conferences for you in Hong Kong.
Chinese people are fine. Great. Fantastic. Just the Chinese government,
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, hey, Todd, I sent you a photograph of my teleprompter in full use in your email.
In my email.
In your because I can't turn the camera on it.
Oh, hang on. Let me go look for it. I've only got 1,171 emails in my box. So I'll have to find it, Rob. I don't know where it went.
I just sent it here in the last hour. So
You sent it to Raw Voice, or you sent it to Geek News, or
Geek News. Geek News.
oh, there it is. It's only 20 down. All right, see if I can show this.
Yeah, I won't be able to see it here.
Okay, so let's do here 5, 6. There we go. Aha! So you can see me,
Yeah.
and you got your out. Oh, you wrote an outline for this show. Shame on you.
No, that's that's the copy that I wrote about
Oh, okay.
my predictions
That's okay.
for the next year. Right.
So that's kind of cool. Look, hey, what else is in that picture? That looks. Oh, you're on the Pod News website. I see. Okay, so Rob Cridlin, take a screenshot there. You say that Rob's got that up there as source material.
Right.
Awesome. So you'll have to share with us the model number of all that so we can take a look. And you're using an Android app, right?
Or an Android tablet.
Android tablet. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, an A7. It's one of their newer ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should have got an iPad. All right, everybody.
I thought about it, but I didn't want to spend that much money.
Oh,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get out of here.
Okay.
Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News is my Twitter account. Rob?
My Twitter account's at Rob Greenlee as well. And you can send me an email if you want, robg@libsyn.com.
And Rob, I had to mention, I can see very clearly what you're reading on the Pod News website. I'm sure the folks at Substack will be interested in knowing you're reading about them.
Well, they launched a podcast hosting platform. Right?
Another free one.
All right.
Don't give them no free publicity.
Don't give them any free publicity. Right.
Make them pay for it. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.